Hey everyone, there's a Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy in plain sight.
What we've already seen is immensely incriminating. Clearly, Donald Trump was at the center of a child sex ring. That is heartbreaking that the President of the United States was involved in that kind of gross, craven immorality.
But it's not that one. I'm Rich Lowry of National Review. What we learned from the massive release of emails from the Epstein estate is that there was indeed an Epstein conspiracy, but it wasn't the work of the deep state. It wasn't the work of Israel. It wasn't the work of the Jews. Instead, Epstein worked in accord with the old axiom, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In Epstein's case, who you know, even if you have committed terrible crimes. What we learned is that there were members of the American elite who liked this guy, who were charmed by him, who thought they could gain something from him. So they were socializing with him. They were confiding in him, despite his guilty plea on sex charges in Florida years before. And these people were emailing and socializing with Epstein long after Donald Trump cut all ties with Jeffrey Epstein. So there's been analysis. Oh, Trump's name is all over the Epstein emails. Yeah, because Epstein was talking about Donald Trump when he was running for president and first became president the way everyone else in the country was. And people were emailing him, asking him what he knew about Donald Trump. So the Epstein conspiracy at its basis, and maybe we'll learn more when the Epstein files are released in their entirety, or we see many more than we have to this point after the votes in Congress. But we do know that he benefited from his status among the elite. They assumed that Epstein knew influential people, therefore they should know him. They thought he was fun. They thought he was useful as a donor, potentially, as a sounding board, as a source of gossip and tips. So he was emailing with an incredibly wide range of people. Again, Donald Trump was not one of them. Larry Summers was one of them. Noam Chomsky was one of them. Steve Bannon was one of them. Michael Wolff, former Obama White House counsel, was one of them. All sorts of moguls and billionaires, the artist Andres Serrano, on and on. And they all assumed that Epstein had special knowledge. And they asked him all sorts of questions and confided all sorts of information in him. What's the reputation of this woman I'm having an affair with? How do I have an affair with this woman I'm interested in? How do I escape sexual harassment allegations? How do I gain more political influence in Europe? How do we bring down Donald Trump? And will he crash and burn in his first presidential run? And who is a good gastroenterologist? All sorts of questions, assuming that he had special knowledge because he knew people. As for his past crimes, well, that was all forgotten and forgiven, again, because he knew lots of influential people. If the famous social wrangler in Manhattan, Peggy Siegel, whose job was to get famous people to get bold-faced names to accept invitations to parties and events, if Epstein was in her good graces, everything must be okay. And for a lot of people, clearly the fact that he was disreputable was part of his appeal. Larry Summers, who was pathetically asking him for advice on how to have an affair and has now paid a price for it, he's pulled back from his public commitments, asked him at one point, what's going on with the lucrative and the louche, right? Epstein knew all the down and dirty information, so you wanted to be in his charm circle to get all the gossip. And again, Donald Trump was not part of this. He is guilty of, at one point, having a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He clearly liked the guy and liked being around him for the same reason everyone else did. But Trump cut him off long before any of these other people who were corresponding with him, in some cases, right up to the point of his final arrest. And they were members of the American elite, the social elite, financial elite, academic elite, media elite. That's a scandal. and it's always been in plain sight. With Epstein, it's not so much follow the money, although that might be important and is still mysterious, but follow the social network. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.